Good afternoon and welcome to the Joy Show. Joy is an acronym for just one you. And so we're exploring how to live that authentic life. And I love to have people on who I can interview and talk about their path, their journey, and how they found the work that they do and the things that they love. Let us begin with the land acknowledgement. We work, live, and play on the historical and traditional territory of many Indigenous nations, including the Anishinaabe and Wendat peoples, and more recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit and Haudenosaunee nations. As we gather from many places on Turtle Island, we as settlers are grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. We also recognize the contribution of Métis, Inuit, and other Indigenous peoples. And though I am not a person of African descent, I'm committed to continually acting in support of and in solidarity with Black communities, seeking freedom and reparative justice in light of the history and ongoing legacy of slavery that continues to impact Black communities in Canada and the US. As part of this commitment, I would also like to acknowledge that not all people came to these lands as migrants and settlers. Specifically, I wish to acknowledge those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. In support of our ongoing efforts to confront anti-Black racism, we pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent. We also acknowledge the contributions both in shaping and strengthening our community and our countries. And by making this acknowledgement, we strive to be allies and take an active part in reconciliation. We recognize our oneness, we realize our history, and we choose to create a new reality. We are one. Well, today I have a remarkable woman as my guest. Her name is Cheryl Driskell and goes by C as an abbreviation. Cheryl is a Sufi elder and she goes by Pir Noor. She is also a student of the Unity New Thought movement and the present communications and service coordinator out of Unity of Ottawa. She has a practice as an intuitive energy therapist and owns the Canadian School of Natural Therapies and Spiritual Development. She is the author of 5 books, and the 5th coming out this summer is called Oneness. It is a series of short spiritual stories to assist in unfolding consciousness. She loves living in the country with her spouse, 2 dogs, several hens, and even 2 rooster pals. How cool is that? She can't get enough of learning, reading, meditating, writing, woodworking, creating music, and just living and loving each moment. Help me welcome C. How are you, my dear?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. So tell me a little bit about your path. There's so many things you're doing. There's so many things you're part of. Your life is so interesting. Tell me a little bit about how you got to where you are.
Oh my goodness. How does anybody get where they are, right? Lots of experiences,
Mhm.
lots of trial and error, and a
Yes.
lot of learning to self-love. And it makes it much
Mm,
easier to travel that path.
it does.
Yeah, so I'm out of Hamilton, Ontario, and
Mm,
I was born and raised there. And I ended up going to university in Ottawa, and I stayed in Ottawa for 26 years. Then I moved across the water to Quebec, and I've been there ever since. So I've been here for about 14, 15 years, which I
wow.
love, being out in the boonies. Except for the satellite and the Wi-Fi, everything's perfect out here because it goes up and down. So if you see me flicker, that's why.
Well, thanks for letting us know that. I'm really glad you're here. So this is beautiful.
Thank you. Hi,
So
Mary Ellen.
Sufism. Sufism. How did you get? I've always found
Well,
that
that's fun.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've always been on the path of seeking, right? So a lot of us are. Ever since I was a kid, my mom said, you always ask questions. What's this? Why this? Who's that? Blah, 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 blah. And that's what the Sufis do. They ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And they said, well, okay, so how are we going to take this trip? And they take this journey through the heart. I mean, literally, it's really an amazing experience. You go into the light of the heart first, and then you settle into that light, and then you find your way through the heart, literally the valves and the chambers of the heart, because every chamber represents a different layer of consciousness. So it is
Wow.
quite a journey, but I found it by working at the Bank of Montreal. So when I was in
Well, that makes
university, I worked
perfect sense.
of course. I mean, why not? Where are you going to find something so progressive and loving? So I ended up. So I
That's
worked in Toronto. You know that big building, the big BMO building. It's
yeah.
called First Canadian Place. So I started up
Yes.
there, and downtown with the chandeliers and the marble floors and everything like that. And it was fun to watch all the really interesting, famous people walking in and stuff. But I eventually moved to Ottawa, and I worked at Place Bell Canada. And there was this guy working there. His name was Michael. And he and I were like in flow, constant flow, right? We just bantered back and forth. We're tellers. And people would literally wait in line just to come to our wicket because we would have so much fun with them. So
Yeah.
I don't know if our manager liked it, but the people liked it. So we would just talk and talk and talk. And we figured out we lived across the street from each other. So he
Oh, that's
shows up at
cool.
my house, my apartment, on the premise of I need some thread and a needle, right? Okay, so he comes into my apartment, and he starts talking to me, and he says to me, "Are you spiritual?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely." But I was Christian, and then I was doing some Buddhism and different things like that. And then he says to me, "Are you gay?" And I'm going, "Am I gay?" And at this moment, I'm literally bent over in my closet looking for needle and thread for him.
Yeah.
So it was pretty funny. I came out of the closet literally
Literally.
to this guy, Michael. I know, it was funny. And I said, "Well, how do you know?" He goes, "Well, we know our own kind." And so I went, "Oh, okay." So we're in natural flow together, me and Michael. And so
Yeah.
I wasn't doing really well where I was living with this person who wasn't treating me properly. So I moved in to his apartment. And so the two of us started discussing different things. It turns out he was meditating every morning, and he's coming out of this bedroom and he looks like he's stoned. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I moved in with somebody who I don't know who he is, right? And then he sits me down and says, "Okay, listen, I'm not stoned. I'm just meditating." And I had not meditated a lot yet, but I went, "Oh, okay, so you can get to this place where you look really mellow and maybe your eyes are a little red." But anyways, so he starts showing me pictures of his teachers, and he starts talking to me about deep breathing and different things like that. And so I started picking up all of this methodology and the practices of the Sufi path. I had no idea. I didn't know. I never even heard the word. I'd heard of Buddhism and Hinduism and Taoism, but never Sufism. So he started teaching me. And as I was growing in it, so was he. And he eventually became a teacher. And he took on different names. And eventually he started teaching me more and more stuff. So the path of the Sufi is such that you learn from a teacher and then you go away and you do your practice. And if you
Yeah.
want to, you can go back to the teacher at different times. And then you go away again and you do your practice. So you do this. I did this for 9 years with him. And then I ended up studying with other teachers. But the one thing that's really fascinating is that, the Sufi path is really about using the heart and living in absolute love. And part of that is understanding everything you can, causing no harm and just loving everything. And so he sent me back to do what I felt I needed to do, which was go back to the United Church of Canada, because I was raised that way. So
Hmm.
while I'm studying Sufism, it's a practice, right? It's not a
Yeah.
religion, even though some people think it is. So
Yeah.
they do, but it's not. And I ended up going back to United Church in Ottawa. I spent a few years there, and I got confirmed because I'd already been baptized.
Yeah.
And so I was adding this Christian thing to me, but I was also studying. I was studying the mystical Christians, the
Mm. Yeah.
Eckharts and and Judith Judith of Norwich and different teachers like that who
Yeah.
really saw the world actually the way the Sufis saw the world, right? And so I was combining, I was gathering all this knowledge, all this information, but every day, of course, was the key. The key was go into meditate and then sit in contemplation. And when you're in contemplation, you have access to your greater wisdom, which is in pure alliance with, through the heart, the one, the oneness. In Sufism, we would call it Allah, and in Christianity, we call it God, or in New Thought, we just call it the one or oneness or infinite source or divine mind. But they all just meshed for me, and I've been at it for 36 years now. There you go.
Wow, that's so cool. Well, and my whole path is about the path of love. Even the tattoo on my chest is, the symbol for the path to enlightenment, and then the heart representing love. And all the work that I do
Beautiful.
is about inclusion, community, collaboration, bringing people together, because that energy of love is what heals everything, I believe. And so, oh, I
It
love
does.
that. I didn't realize Sufism was the practice. I'll have to
Yeah.
take that up,
Yeah.
add that to
So,
my repertoire.
yeah, because Sufism, okay, so it comes from different areas of the world. So what happened was Sufis were the carpetbaggers. They were the people who would carry a bag over their shoulder and travel all over the world to gather information to sit with the greatest teachers. Right? They would sit with the greatest teachers and they would gather more of that love. And whenever they found something profound, they would sit there longer. And at one point, they actually sat at the feet of Muhammad. So these were beings, they were in India, they were in Africa, they were in the Middle East and Southeast Asia. And so they sat with Muhammad. And so Islam got connected to Sufism, right? Because
Mhm.
also they believed Muhammad was a great true teacher of love. So they sat with him. But Sufism actually existed before. So you'll see that there's a lot of people now. There's Christian Sufis, there's Buddhist Sufis, there's Jewish Sufis, there's all these different individuals and Hindu Sufis, people coming to follow the practical techniques, right, of the Sufis, because we become healers very quickly. You can't enter the heart without learning how to heal the body. It just happens like that. It's a
Yeah.
very natural outcome of this work because you're releasing the veils, what they call the veils of unawareness, around the
Yeah.
heart through your practice, and it dissolves that which is in the way of natural order, natural flow with the oneness. So that is that. So we become healers a lot, and so I kind of fell into the path of doing healing work, and I'd never expected it. It was quite a shock to me to realize that I could just talk to people about things and suddenly they felt better. And
Yeah.
but when you sit in that joy, when you sit in the one, and you've done your practice, your own energy can start the support of healing in others. And even though we use chants or we use zikrs to help people improve their health, we actually sometimes you just need to sit still and be in the space and hold space for others to unravel their own stuff. And so it is a wonderful experience.
That's really cool. That's
Yeah,
really interesting. 'Cause of course, in New Thought, we're always talking about oneness, which, I mean, it's not new. It's age-old wisdom. It's been around forever, that idea that we are all connected. And so it makes perfect sense
yeah,
that if my mind is clear and we are together, that there is an energy happening that shifts. If you're ready, it will shift everything. That is
yeah.
very
There's a
cool.
resonance, right? So
Mhm.
the oneness has a certain resonance when you can just release ego, need, and attachment. Be there, and I call it the oasis, that oasis of peace and love. When
Yeah.
you're in that space, and then you go up, maybe you go shopping, or maybe you go to church, or go to the synagogue, or wherever you're going, a temple, and suddenly people around you are going, wow, do I ever feel good in the presence of this person? You know?
Yeah,
And
that's Cool. Hmm.
I think we're headed there. I think that the path we're headed, all of us, because all paths eventually lead to the one, right?
Yeah.
And the oneness, I think we're all going to go to that place where we cultivate relationships with the oneness through practices coming out of our traditions now, but we focus more on practice. If we don't focus enough on practice, then you really can't get there, right? It's not just going to spontaneously happen that you feel great. It has to be through your efforts, thought and action, and then you can unravel that which is in the way of your opening and surrendering to the oneness. Yeah,
That's, I think that's something that isn't talked about enough when it comes to spiritual work is, people will attend a spiritual center or they'll read books that are uplifting. But if we're not doing the practice, we really don't evolve or change. We stay right where we are. And it might feel good while we're reading something
exactly.
inspirational, but too much reading and too little practice leads to nothingness. Right? Like we don't get where it is we
Yeah,
say we want to go in that. Oh, that's very cool.
yeah.
Now you also
It's a
have
temporary high.
go ahead.
Sorry. I just said it's a temporary high and it's
Yeah.
not enough.
No, it's not. And it's not going to last and it's not going to make a difference in our world. And our world is, I
Yeah,
think, calling for those of us who can be in that heart space, that loving space, to be there as pretty much as solid as possible in order to begin to shift the collective energy. It has to be done
exactly.
together, right? So
Yeah.
that's very cool. Now you have a school as well, your natural therapies. What was it called?
Yeah. So it's called the Canadian School of Natural Therapies and
Yeah.
Spiritual Development.
Okay.
So it kind of started, so really interestingly, in 2006, I heard a message from the oneness, which
Yeah.
was from my higher wisdom in connection, in alignment with the one. I heard, you're going to start a school. And I went, okay. And I went, okay, whatever. I hear all sorts of things. And then I went, okay, so I got on with my life. And then into the year, I heard it again. You're going to start a school. I said, okay. What kind of school? Talk to me. So then I heard study intuition. I said, okay, I can do that because I'm already intuitive. I'm going to start adding more intuition awareness to my life. So I start studying. I just studied with the Edgar Cayce Institute. And I
Mhm.
also did my own practices and my own awareness work. And
Yeah.
it came really fast, like bang, because I already had this ability, but I wanted to refine it. So I thought, okay, maybe this will be intuitive. I don't know. So I went along this journey. I taught a class. And I had 14 women in my class for intuitive development in Ottawa. And so it was a
Yeah.
riot. We had a blast. And then in 2011, I mean, this is years, okay? And I heard, oh, now talk about that school you're going to start. I went, what? I said, okay, so I'll talk about the school. So I started talking. I said, yeah, I'm going to start a school. I don't really know what it is yet, but I'm going to start it. And apparently I'm going to, and I'm going to be told what it is. So I
That
started talking about it. And so it just happened, I mentioned it to a woman who I'd helped a lot in my work, and her husband. I helped them a lot, and he was feeling great. And she found a tumor, and she went and had that tumor removed. And she came to me and she says, listen, I want to help you with your school. And I want to help you share what you do because, it's really helped me and my family. I said,
yeah.
well, what do you have in mind? So she says, well, I want to talk. I'm going to give you some money. I said, wow, that's huge. A huge investment. Thank you so much for trusting me. And she did. She gave me 20 grand. And that started I hired people to help me with the development of the web. I hired people to help me uh, with additional courses I was going to need, because to me, I don't just do anything small. I have to do something big, right? I have to make sure that if I'm going to teach, it's not just me. People hear other good teachers So I started
Exactly.
adding courses from other good teachers, and I hired people around the country to write courses. And before you
Yeah.
know it, it started going towards naturotherapies. I'm going, well, I kind of what I do is naturotherapy. It's energy, right? I work with energy. So in our culture, we don't want to talk about energy. We don't want to talk about things that you can't see. So we call it naturotherapy, you know? So
Power of words.
I know. So before you know it, I had multiple teachers and I had an online classroom. And then it came to me, you need to give diplomas and you need to have it accredited. So, I mean, this is all being taught to me as I'm doing this work, this unfolding. And so I found an accreditor. I found what I had to do. I got more courses and I got a trademark. And now we teach registered integrative natural therapies, RIN. So people who graduate from the school get their RIN. And I'm going, how did that happen? I started in 2006 with an idea, 2011 with a whisper. In 2012, I was developing a school. There it is right there. And we teach Reiki, we teach other energy therapies, and we teach intuitive development. So you can
Wow.
get your RIN in any of those categories.
Yeah.
And we also work with animals, not just people.
Hmm.
And it's been fabulous. It's been a great journey.
Wow.
10 years April, 10 years anniversary. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting when you listen to the guidance that comes,
Yeah.
how it then will move you forward in ways you didn't expect.
Well, and ways you never thought you could. Like, who am I? Right.
Yeah.
So I was just this little Sufi trying to live and engage in life and be present.
And this
So,
is life-giving work.
yes, no, this it's helped a lot of people. And
Yeah.
we always get a lot of good feedback, and a lot of people have been benefiting from this journey. I'm very happy for that. And
Nice.
I'm moving out of it though. I'm moving into Unity because that's my next guidance. So I'm going to be selling the school and I'm going to be moving into becoming a minister of Unity because I feel driven to be educated more in the Unity community.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's a lot like the Sufi path in terms of its awareness.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm going to be studying to be a minister in September, I hope. Cross your fingers. I'm just going to be finishing up the interviews in March. Yeah, there you go. There's Unity of
We'll be there.
Ottawa, where I work. I actually work with them as well. I
Yeah.
manage the services on Sundays. So, yeah, and I think I've told you already that my spouse and I are developing our own business coming up, and it's going to be a corporation that focuses on unfolding consciousness. So, and in that purview of unfolding consciousness, we're going to do publishing of Canadian spiritual authors. We're going to do projects that we don't know what they'll be. It could be in the community that we do something. And then we're going to offer education. We're going to offer courses and different training platforms for people to unfold into the greater consciousness because it's all there.
Yeah.
Everything's there. You just have
Yeah.
to unfold and get rid of some of those layers of darkness that stop you from seeing what's right in front of you and
Yeah.
elevating yourself.
Yeah, I think, we've been limited through, our parents, the media, school, all of these things sort of put ideas in our head about what we should do or shouldn't do, what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad, all of this kind of stuff. And I think that's part of that unpackaging is a lot of what we believe about life isn't even our beliefs. It's stuff that we were given by well-meaning people. So
Yeah,
unpacking that and beginning to move that out of the way can really accelerate our movement forward as we change our consciousness.
yeah. And you know what? And it struck me today that I need to mention this because it's a big issue for me. is suicide. And
Mhm.
there's been a lot of, I've seen too much. And
Yeah.
I was suicidal at 15. So 15
Mhm.
because I was coming out and to
Yeah.
myself, and nobody around me was open to gay people. And it was the
Yeah.
70s, no, early 80s.
Yeah.
So, and I thought, and I did that. And then I started, okay, I don't really want to do this. I just want better. I just want better. I want to up level. Okay. I'm not happy here, but I don't want to really take out my life. I just want to up level my life. So I
Yeah.
said, that's my goal. I don't want to stay stuck. And that's what I'm going to focus on. So even at 15, I knew that that would be the priority. So I started meditating and I started writing out all my thoughts and feelings. And I realized that this was helpful, you know,
Yeah.
and meditation, it can it can help slow down the rate of diseases. It can help you dissolve diseases. It can help increase your ability to communicate with others. It can help you feel better about yourself. Just
Yeah.
dissolve the need to die when you really want to live, but you just want better. And that's why these paths, the New Thought, the Sufism, the progressive Christians, and different communities, the focus is love, the focus is light, the focus is evolving through
Yeah.
unawareness. We want to get through the layer. And when you feel that overwhelmed, just sit with it. Don't try to figure everything out in the moment. Just allow yourself to be present and
Yeah.
acknowledge that that's one layer. It's one layer of thinking, it's one layer of stuckness. There's more on the other side. We can't be afraid to face it and get through that wall because too many people get afraid of the wall.
Yeah.
And it scares me for them.
Mhm. And I think too there's depending on the age of a person as well, there's especially with younger people, I think it's probably more predominant that if this is what life is, then I'm done. Like they're not seeing it as a temporary condition that really only needs some sort of temporary or some immediate attention that will allow it to shift and move and doesn't need anything as extreme as suicide. I have a brother who committed
Exactly.
suicide. I was suicidal for many, many years of my life. And the energy that it took to stop that was fascinating because I had a I had a stranger phone me up one day. It was the last time I was actually had put a plan in place to take my life, and I'm getting ready to leave the house. Everything's figured out. My kids are looked after. All is well. And this woman that I don't know phones me up. She sat behind me at church, and she phoned me up, and she goes, "I don't know why I'm phoning you, but you've been on
Wow.
my mind and I can't get you off." And I go, "Well, I've got to go out. I've got something to do." And she's like, "Well, we need to talk for a little bit because there's this, I need to talk to you and I don't know why." So that sort of really anchored my belief in this higher power and our oneness and the potential that life holds. And since then, I've had rough days since then occasionally, but never have I considered taking my life again. And it's like that whole idea of whatever's happening in the world or around me, I can manage it because it's all temporary and
Yeah,
it's always changing. We're going to take a short break
absolutely.
and we'll be right back. Lots more great conversation to have here with my beautiful guest, C. Driscoll. Pir Noor is her Sufi name. And so stick around. We'll be right back with lots more interesting spiritual stuff.
New Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
Welcome back to the Joy Show and my guest, C. Driskell. All right, so we've been talking about all of these amazing things that you're doing. It's incredible to me. Now, you are also an author. You've written a bunch of books.
Yep.
You were talking
Yep.
about my energy earlier. I don't know, girl. you, you seem to have lots.
Yeah. And you know, I did a lot of that while I had chronic fatigue. So I had to overcome the chronic fatigue that I was going through for years. I started it in my late teens and it lasted all through my 20s and early 30s. So yeah, those are a couple of the books. And that second one is really a fun book. That's a 52-week program in how to develop your intuition. And I see intuition as a way to awaken. So if you listen, you will be guided in how to wake up and how to find your own realization. So if you don't feel like, you know, you're someone who belongs in a group or something, you can sit and listen to the inner wisdom and start to develop a conversation with your greater wisdom and learn all the steps you need to truly wake up. So it's a journey. So that was a fun book to write, I'll tell you. Yeah. And the first one was about Reiki for kids. Yeah.
Oh,
And
I
then,
love that.
yeah. And then that one there, the Be in Your Heart book, the top one there, Be in Your Heart, be that change. So, you know, Gandhi was a Satyagrahi, and I took on that path for a while, living the path of peace, being so that you cannot feel any anger or hurt, so that when you are present to people, they will not be inspired to hurt you or in any way. So, and Martin Luther King took that on too. So he said, we can't march today because he could feel something was coming. He could feel the anger of the people. And that when you're out of flow, that's when the beginning, it can lead to violence. It can lead to more anger. So you have to be in flow. So when I wrote that book, it was about, well, how do I get into flow? So I teach, be in the heart, be that change. And that change is what's going to bring you into that peace. It's a very easy book. And it's the type of thing you can put in your purse, carry it wherever you go, and just take a few pages and really feel, because that book was written in a state of profound consciousness. It didn't have to think about it. It just flowed through me, and every page was another flow and another flow. I've had friends and other people say to me, when they pick up that book, they feel their self vibrating, and they actually feel happiness and joy starting as they go through the book, because it's a book created in that space of love. And the words are written to vibrate and to help us harmonize. So that's a fun one.
Wow, awesome. And the one below that?
Well, that's the guide to resilience. So along the way, I also had I had other parts of my life, and I had panic attacks all the time. And I would have 1, 2, 5, 10 a day, to the point where I was in university and I could barely function anymore. So I ended up, after university, I crashed. I couldn't function. I was completely exhausted. So it turns out it was autoimmune problems that led me to panic, right? So they labeled it a panic disorder. So because the doctors didn't know what they were talking about at the time, because autoimmune problems were not a big thing back then in the 90s. So I got the label panic disorder. And really what it was my body was overwhelmed by the inflammation in the body. And I also had low thyroid, anemia, and a hugely, massively rageful gallbladder. So the gallbladder disease alone was making me nauseous and weak every day. And it was undiagnosed because the doctor said, well, you're a young woman. I was skinny at the time. There's all this generalizations around gallbladder disease. And I had it, and I had it bad. So because I didn't get the help of the community, I ended up carrying that disease for 30 years. And to the point where I almost died, because it opened up and the gallstones got stuck in parts of my organs and led me to pancreatitis. And I had blood coming out of my body. And they had to go down my throat and grab all those gallstones that got. So that's what happens when you don't, the label of panic disorder led me to ignore the other risks that I was actually having. So let's just say that the one good thing out of all of this is I developed resilience. I developed the capacity to manage anything. And I was able to, I meditated more. I took better care of my health. I focused on my writing and my contemplation. And by the time I was done, I was this incredibly peaceful person with a gallbladder disease that I need to fix. And I still have the occasional inflammatory experience. But I also, during that time, as a very highly motivated person, I founded the Anxiety Association of Ontario. And I managed that for 9 years. And we did a lot of good. We did a lot of good in the community. We actually sent volunteers to people's homes who were housebound with fear from their panic and different things. And we got them out of the house. And it was a wonderful experience. We even sent nutritionists in to help them change their way of living. And then partway into my experience with the ADAO, I helped found the Anxiety Association of Canada with 3 other organizations across the country. And we got that on the map. And now all the greatest teachers for anxiety are members of that organization in Canada. And so there's tons and tons of doctors and therapists and different things who are members. And they help write the information to dispense to people who need help. Yeah.
So is there anything on the planet you haven't done? That might be an easier interview.
You know what I haven't done? Yeah, you know what I haven't done? And this is the thing that gets to me a bit. Because of all the inflammation I went through and all the panic and stuff, I didn't get to travel. So I need to travel. So it's not like I haven't been in planes, and I've been across Canada, except for the East Coast yet. And but I've been down the States numerous times. And my partner and I just we take little trips. We go to Gananoque for lunch, and Kingston for dinner, and and different places, Montreal, and you name it. We just go places, but I haven't crossed the ocean. And I think that's a terror that I still have to work on, because I don't like the idea of 6 or 7 hours in a plane, because I'm thinking that my trip to Toronto is 50 minutes. That's enough. I'm happy.
Exactly.
But I don't want to be in a 6-hour plane ride yet. I'm not ready. I'm working on it. Working on
getting there. Yeah. Well, it's interesting.
I'm heading to Italy.
Ah, yes, that'll be lovely. It's interesting because when we travel overseas, it really does change. I mean, I've only been once. I went to Paris, and but it was so different than what I'm accustomed to. The food was so good. The best food I've ever eaten. Um, oh
I
my
love
gosh.
it.
I could go back there just to eat. I'm not sure how that would fit with my vegan diet. Lots of cheese and
Yeah,
butter um, but the food was
croissant.
sensational. And I think that experience of just roaming around Paris was a really fun one for me. Doing it with a girlfriend was great fun as well. It's like neither one of us spoke French. We had a little bit that we could, kind of, I could find my way around the subway. For some reason, I could read the signs, probably from my school days of French. But when it come, needed mascara because I'd forgotten mine at home. I could not get the guy in the store to understand what I wanted. He may have been choosing to ignore me, but because I'm sure
Yeah,
me going,
it happens.
but
Yeah.
it was
Uwe,
great
no.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
had
that's
no
good.
idea. Yeah. But I think travel
Well,
like that is so important because we see other ways of living and eating and speaking, and it does help to expand our horizons a bit.
it makes a difference. And I know I belong in Italy for a while. I know I belong in France. I know I belong in England. And my grandfather was born in England, and I have another great, great, great from Scotland, and a great, great from Wales. And my grandmother was Norwegian, and we got another grandmother who was Swedish. So I got to do Europe, and
You
I
do.
and I
You
would
do
really
need
like to do it. I'd like to do it while I have some money, so that I don't have to worry about coming home for 3 to 6 months. That would be my
Yeah.
dream.
I
I
think
should
that's
put
a
that
good
on my
one.
masterminding list.
I think
Yeah,
it's time. I think it's time. And when you think about
yeah,
the things that you do and what you understand about the world and life and consciousness and stuff, I think expanding our horizons really does make a big difference because it's up to us. Like if this world is going to become all that it could be, it requires all of us to participate. There has to
yeah,
be a conscious effort to do something differently than what we've done before. And travel's
absolutely.
part
And
of it.
there leads into one of my favorite topics today, Harry and Meghan.
Yeah.
Now let me explain.
Harry
Now,
and Meghan. Okay, here we go.
yeah, and the reason is I have absolute respect for that couple, and let me tell you why. Because things have to change. Things have to change in the Commonwealth countries, because
Yes.
the very fact that racism has been allowed in the media constantly since
Yeah.
Meghan went over to marry this beautiful man, the fact that nobody said no, nobody said that's inappropriate. All they did was criticize, and they continue to criticize this couple's need to be treated with respect. Now,
Yeah.
if I were the king, I would say what's most important is my family. Because when I show the Commonwealth people how well I treat my family, how much I love them, how much I'm capable of hearing their need to be heard.
Yeah.
If I, as the king, heard my family and honored them by saying it is time that we get racism out of the media in our country, and it's time you show my daughter-in-law the respect she deserves. And when that happens, people will want him as king. But while he dismisses and ignores all of it, nobody
Yeah.
in the Commonwealth countries is going to step it up to support him, because racism is at the core of the wealth of the original monarchs. And so he's got to switch it up. So I hope
I
somebody
agree.
gets this over to him to hear this. Yeah. And I think
Good,
they're
good.
doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
So,
followed them a bit. I've
you
never
know,
followed any of the monarchs, but I followed a lot of information about them. I was quite intrigued by what they're doing and how they're doing it, and watch different interviews and stuff. I know there's a series or there's a show on Netflix. I haven't watched that yet, but I think I when King Charles got the king, I was saddened by that because I've never felt that he was that type of a leader. Um,
yeah. Well, he's going to have to
he,
step it up if he wants to keep it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
and
think
and he
it
can.
should have gone to his sons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? He needs to hire me as a consultant.
Oh, okay. Let's send him the link to this video. And okay, King, here's what you got to do.
Absolutely.
Hire C. Okay, that needs to
Absolutely.
be
He's
part of
got
your master plan.
old folks. Get rid of his consultants. They're ruining his life. They're ruining his children's lives. And you know what the thing is? Every young person needs to be heard, especially by their parents.
Yes,
And if you don't
yes.
hear them and you deny them
Hmm.
at a national and international level, they have the right to be heard at a national and international level. And that's what they're doing. They're writing their
Absolutely.
books, they're telling the story. They're not trying to blacklist anybody, but they are very clear. Here's the damage, and here's what
Here's
needs to
what's going
change.
on. Here's the
And I think,
harm.
yeah, they better listen because they're going to lose their monarchy. You got to be a
I love
person
it.
of the people.
You got to
Yeah.
be a person of the people
Anyways,
for sure. I was
yeah.
reading a new book by Michelle Obama, uh,
Yes.
The Light Within or something. I can't remember the title of it. I'm in the middle of reading it and I can't remember the title of it.
Okay.
But she was talking about, and I love this, a friend of hers, when he wakes up in the morning, the first thing he does is he runs into the bathroom and goes, "Hey, buddy," and greets himself with absolute gladness. And she said,
Well, that's nice.
she talked about if we would greet our children every time they enter the room with absolute gladness, like you have value, you spark my life, you mean something to me. Imagine the change in the consciousness of our children and in
Mm.
ourselves and in the collective. So, King Charles, you need to greet your children with absolute joy and gladness.
Good for you.
Michelle
Yeah.
Obama's an interesting woman.
Oh, she's brilliant. I love her. I read her first book. I
Yes.
haven't got the second one yet, but I
Oh,
love
this
her.
book is
Yeah.
so good. My husband bought it for me. It's so good. And I think what I love is, the way she compares, how she was raised, where she was raised with people who were raised differently, and then how all of that has come together to make her the person that she is today, what she learned from her
Yeah.
parents, um, the fact that she's been allowed to make choices. In the book, she talks about uh, when when her husband decided that or talked about running for president, and he gave her the choice. He said, I'm thinking of doing this, but I want you to make the decision because it would impact the family at such a level that it had to be a collaborative thing. And she said it was a very fearful moment to sit back and go, like, everything's going to change, and are we ready for that? But then
Yeah.
on the other side
Yeah.
of it is, do I want young Black girls to see this type of power? Do we want to see that we can do this, we can be anything? And here we are in Black History Month, so this is great. We're going along in a
It is
new conversation
absolutely
here.
wonderful.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
think,
And,
what she has to say is so good.
oh yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
for sure. She's brilliant. I'm just going to say that I just took a DEI training.
Mhm,
So just diversity, equity, and inclusion training using the
mhm.
book Conversations with a Black Man. And
Oh, I've
everybody
read
should
that.
read this. It's a wonderful book. So as I was reading it, and I mentioned to the group, I said, you know that in the United States, more people, the group of people graduating from university or college more than anybody else are Black women. I said, one day, the United States of America will be managed and led by Black women, guaranteed. And I said, I can't wait for that
Yeah.
to be even more profound. It's starting, it's been going for a while, but it's getting even more and more rich, more and more powerful. And we're seeing it
Yeah.
with the vice president, and we're going to see it with a future president. I think in the next decade, we could have a Black female leader who is president of the United States. I pray for this stuff. It's
Oh,
so
yeah, I
important.
want one of those
It's
here
about time.
too. Yeah, here in Canada as well. It would be nice to see a Black woman leading one of the main parties and becoming actually prime
Yeah.
minister. I think
Well, even to
I
have
think
a
there's
woman
what's
in a
that?
leadership role, even to have
Oh,
a
having
woman leading one of the parties.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed when with the Green Party that the woman who was running in downtown Toronto didn't get elected. And I think, I really like her. I can't remember her name offhand now, but she is a powerhouse, and I think she would do great, great things. She ran in the wrong riding, I think. Um, so I don't know what the answer
Yeah.
is to that, the way politics works. But I think we have to open our doors. When I think about this whole idea of white supremacy, it's really it's the oddest thing to me because we're not even the majority of the people.
No,
When you look at the
no, but we
world,
just kind of want to take
Christianity,
over.
yeah, Christianity isn't the norm. English isn't the norm, and white is not the norm. And yet this is where
No,
the power is.
for now.
We need to
It
interrupt
will be
that for
taken
now.
away. It
Yeah.
will be taken away. I
Well,
guarantee it. I just,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Well, I
But it
serve
will dissolve.
on yeah. It takes each one of us, being allies or standing up and doing something. I'm on the board of directors of Toronto PWA Foundation, which is people living with AIDS, and all the support that we
Mm.
offer them. And we are doing some really remarkable work as a board. We have a very diverse board. We've got, I think, every box checked. Um, and we are dismantling anti Indigenous, anti Black racism at the governance level and into the main staff, and then below that. And also the whole concept of the colonialism, the way things have been layered and created to create that separation. So I'm excited about the work that we're doing, and it may very well be a remarkable model that can then be replicated in other organizations, and maybe at a governance level. Like,
I would love that. I'd love to see that.
mhm.
Because,
We're really excited.
even now, oh, good. As you fill out forms, as you get ready to open your career, people ask you questions. They say, "What is your gender?" They say, "What is your race?" And I'm thinking, what does it matter? Like, why are you asking me this? Just to fill some statistic from your patriarchal view of what reality is? Like, stop
Yeah,
it. You don't need to do those. Those
I agree.
questions are irrelevant at this point. So, I even did it
Yeah,
on my recent application. I wrote in my recent application, I don't need to answer this question,
good. Good
you
for
know?
you. Because
Yeah.
that's where the change will come. I do a show on New Thought Media Network, the first Friday of the month, called The Good News, and I'm doing it tonight actually. And I'm going through news stories, looking for good news stories. And Finland has just passed a law that transgender people can actually do their transition without being sterilized or having to go
Oh,
through a
oh,
whole bunch of I know, I'm looking at the story going,
wow.
you were doing what? Like, in order for a trans person to do the surgeries and stuff, they would have to go through the psychiatric assessments and sterilization, and they've overturned that law, so I'm going, "Yay." Like, I'm dumbfounded
Wow.
by some of the archaic ways we try to control people's lives. that we don't know. We have no idea
Yeah.
of them. And I have a number of transgender friends and stuff, and I'm like, that just, thinking that you can't be who you are, that it's not okay to be who you are, that is just wrong on so many levels.
Well, it breaks you, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I
Makes you
don't
stop.
understand it. Well, Michelle Obama talked about when she went to Princeton, like she was like the only Black woman. Like she would look around and finding another Black person was like really difficult. And a Black woman also was really difficult to find. And so, she said, mainly it was white men. And so that was a whole new thing trying to, fit in. Plus, she's almost 6 foot tall. So she stands out anyway, right? I didn't realize she was that tall. But
Wow,
so
yeah.
yeah, she's 5'11". And it's like, just going through all of the different things of, she just talks in there so authentically about, what she would have to do inside herself in order to just cross the campus.
Hmm.
And it's like, we
That's
don't,
not a good thing.
as a white person, we don't know this. We haven't
No.
experienced this. I mean, as a woman, I've experienced abuse from men, but not to this degree or this level. So it's
Mm.
fascinating to watch. Life is changing, see? It's changing.
Well, it is, and fortunately, her daughters are going to have a far better experience. 30 years later, we are
Yeah,
evolving, and that's the gift.
we
We
are.
are evolving, and
We are.
that's important,
It
you
is.
know, and
So
we have to
final
continue
words?
to trust that.
Yeah, final words before we close?
I would say, we didn't get a chance to go into this, but you say, we talk about joy, right? That's what this is about. And for me, joy is presence.
Yes.
And that's how I get to love myself. That's how I get to feel this evolving joy through me to give to others. And also just to be with that joy and in the oneness. And that will evolve joy for you, right? You just have to be allowing yourself that time and energy to be still. And that will come through you. It's a consequence of presence and self-love. So,
Yeah, it really is.
for
It
me,
really is. And yeah, this show is all about living your authentic truth. And that's what will be satisfying, fulfilling. That's what will create harmony and success in your life and in your world. That's what brings us to a place of joy that actually lasts. It's not about, oh, I bought a new car, now I'm happy. It isn't about that. It's about feeling good in your own skin, allowing yourself to
yeah.
shine even on the darkest days, because we all have them, knowing that those two are temporary and it doesn't impinge on the essence of you that already is and always has been perfect, whole, and complete. And so we move into life with a greater sense of joy as we fall in love with who we are, as we are, which is so important. Thank you
Absolutely.
so much
Thank
for
you.
being with me today. You
Pleasure.
are like remarkable. To put it simply. And for
I'm
everybody
happy.
watching, C will be my co-host on next Wednesday's Spirit Cafe. So do come and check out that show. It's going to be a lot of fun. She's going to interview me. Huh.
It's going to be great. I can't wait.
It'll be
Woohoo!
awesome. Thank you so much. C, have a wonderful, wonderful week. I love you. Bye, everybody. Thank
You
you for
too.
watching, and be sure to like,
Thank you.
share, subscribe, and hey, give us a comment. Positive ones are always appreciated. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network. Come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.